Hello, everybody. Today, talking about becoming more resilient as a sensitive person, and the title that that I chose for this talk is "Am I Too Sensitive?" which is something that I can remember being told on many occasions over the years, and in my youth. Whenever I was told that by somebody, it usually felt like a dagger. It usually felt like this savage rejection of my truth, of something so essential of me, which is what I was feeling, which sometimes was maybe just like kind of almost like a weather system that was moving through me. But when you're feeling your feelings, when you're a sensitive person and you're aware of things that are going on, or you're so aware of what's going on inside of you, and someone says, stop being you, stop being this exquisitely emotive, empathic, sensitive individual, it can feel like a pretty awful dismissal of probably the most sacred part of a person. Because for myself, and that's really what I want to draw from today, is just I want to share my own experience and my own story, learning to be more resilient as a highly sensitive person. But for myself, I see my sensitivity, my ability to feel deeply, my ability to empathically attune to others and feel what they're feeling, to be open and receptive to what's going on around me, with people, with emotions. I consider those some of the most exquisite, beautiful parts of myself. It's the essence of myself. That's like the sacred essence of who I am. So I consider it a profound gift, and it's a gift that keeps on becoming more profound and more beautiful as I learn and grow in this lifetime. However, it is a gift that has other sides with, it's a gift that has also been basically it's been very limiting, even disabling, at points in my life. And that's not unique. That's so many people's story, right? Being these empathic, beautiful, sensitive people in this world that is so cruel and harsh and confusing, and it's filled with so much trauma and all these wounded people who can be so mean to each other if they don't understand what's going on inside of them. And sometimes very sensitive people become very mean people, or very mean people are drawn to be mean to sensitive people because they're open and they're receptive and they're compassionate. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I didn't understand it clearly at the time, but I knew that this world felt like an incredibly cruel place, and I didn't know how to feel comfortable as a sensitive person in the world that I grew up around. And I started to spend a lot of time alone in nature because that felt kind of like an escape hatch. I could feel natural and comfortable and expanded and at ease, in an environment of my own curation, in an environment of safety and natural beauty. And so, eventually I spent many years living in the woods and cabins that I built with friends and by myself for quite a period of time. And, now I think that there were many reasons that I did that, but certainly one of them, and a very significant one, was that I was just a really sensitive kid, a very sensitive, empathic kid who didn't understand how to be that way in a world that felt terrifyingly callous and just crazy. It just felt batshit crazy. So I was just like, I'm out. But that out had its limitations. I lay this all out in a kind of a different context in my new book, How to Open the Heart. I tell like a detailed, much more detailed version of this story. Yeah, after a number of years of that, it became clear that I needed to reach inside and get in tune with the sensitivity and the emotional blocks I had. What I really got into in an extreme way was just reaching in to that sensitivity and vulnerability and excavating the shit out of it and just opening it up and just fucking around, like just not really knowing what was here or there, but having some guidance and some great guidance and a whole lot of conviction to like, okay, we're gonna like learn what's going on in here, let's do this. And I approached it in a pretty extreme way. One of the byproducts of that was, I was already the kind of person who was so sensitive and empathic that I felt uncomfortable being in this world, and I felt much more comfortable being by myself, being in the woods, reading books, creating things, what have you. Even one-on-one, I would need so much time to like decompress and just be on my own. Once I started really excavating and opening that, I became even more sensitive. I became much more aware of my empathic reactions to individuals. And I became aware, and I think I started being more receptive to other people's emotions and feelings and energies. And I was like a sponge that would absorb what was going on in others around me. And as you know, we humans are a fucked up lot. We have a lot of weird shit going on inside of us all of the time. A big part of human life is experiencing challenges and all kinds of feelings and having a lot of stuff happen to us in our childhood that we have to process or re-experience and recreate later on in life. So through no fault of the people around me, I was constantly thrown off and often incapacitated by the disharmonious energy and emotion that I would empathically attuned to in other people. I would just soak it up and I didn't know what to do. Even though I had now left the woods, I actually became a more isolated individual after I left the woods because I was doing all of this inner work and opening up my sensitivity and empathy and receptivity so much that I couldn't fucking be around people. People were too fucked up. And I'm not saying this because I think people are more fucked up than me. I'm part of the tribe of humanity. So trust me, I'm not saying this in a condemning way whatsoever. But yeah, I didn't have the resilience, right? Like I was opening up that sensitivity, but it would take a while for me to learn about this resilience. And I'm still 100% learning about it. But up until a few years ago, I probably got to my worst point a few years ago. And I talk a little bit about this in the book. I describe, like dating women and just like completely soaking up someone's energy and being like physically sick afterwards from a good person, from just a normal person, because we all carry like so much stuff and it's actually extraordinary and beautiful. But I had opened up my vulnerability so much it was like a raw wound. And if you just touched it, it would hurt. You didn't have to touch it with a hot iron. You didn't have to pour salt in it. You just had to touch it and it would hurt because I had opened it up. And there was so much sensitivity, so much rawness. And again, I hadn't learned how to hold that yet. And that just, it seemed like there was all this extraordinary learning and inner work that I was doing over these years, but I was definitely becoming more and more isolated and kind of just extracted from friendships, relationships. The river of humanity is what I refer to it now. And a few years ago, that began to change. I got a job that was extremely social and put me into contact with a lot of diverse people. That was hugely beneficial because I just had no choice but to learn how to be around all these different kinds of energy. And I think I had a bit of a philosophical shift as well, because there was a philosophy that I don't think I consciously ever like chose or would have described myself as an adherent to, because it's not a very attractive philosophy when you say it out loud. But basically it was like, I'm a really sensitive person, and what I need to do is just like purify my life and just keep on purifying it and purifying it and purifying it. And the people who throw me off, I just need to purify myself. They need to either purify themselves so they're pure enough to be around my pure, sensitive self, or we can't be around each other. I just need to keep on purifying myself, and then the pure people, those are my people. The pure life is my life, which is absolutely fucking insane, because there aren't, like, the pure people are crazy. Like, we're all fucked. That's being human, and it's so beautiful. Like, it's so wonderful when we just admit, like, we're human, man. We're fucked. We make hilarious choices. We have these childhood wounds, these desires, these insatiable curiosities that cause us to like stumble into the fire. And it's beautiful and it's sacred, and we can learn and we can grow and we can be positive. We can love each other and we can support each other. But I'm not quite hitting the nail on the head, so I want to take another shot. I think what really was the philosophical shift, and it happened over time, because thank God I had the humility to just be in this process and not marry myself to a path of isolation and purification and kind of like emotional or spiritual nobility or something. I'm probably not going to fully, completely nail it, but, you know, a big part of it was choosing to shift from trying to kind of curate a bubble of like pure, emotionally healing reality, instead of, trying to like extract myself from the world and create an alternate, pure world. The shift was towards learning how to be in this world and hold my truth within it. And instead of letting the things in the world that contrast with what feels natural to me, instead of letting them freak me out, instead of letting them overwhelm me, instead of just taking them on, absorbing them like a sponge and collapsing and needing to go hide in the woods or in my den or whatever, like, instead of doing that, making it an art, a life's work to learn how to be my natural, expansive, expressive self within this wild, crazy shitstorm that is the world, all of the people. And I say shitstorm kind of tongue-in-cheek because it's so beautiful, so profound, so sacred. And it's such a challenge to learn how to be my own natural self in contrast. Sometimes it feels like in contrast to everything in my environment. You know, there's so much negativity and there's so much shame. There's so much, so on and so forth. And what an extraordinary, beautiful dance to go into that environment and hold something different, hold what is natural and honest and authentic and pure to myself within, it's the cliche would be to be the light in the dark. However, I think that might come across as a little arrogant because that's not how I see myself. I feel like part of the work of this is learning how to see the light in the supposed dark, because when I was younger, or when I was, 5, 10 years ago, learning to like tear open my sensitivity and like so aware of all of the things that felt challenging or harsh or sad or negative or angry or mean in the people and the environment around me. It's now, in order to maintain my boundaries or my sense of self within that, a big part of it is learning to see the beauty in all of it, learning to see the light in it, and not to place myself above it at all. That's not a healthy place to go. But to really feel distinct and separate, but also to feel like so much a part of it, like to see everybody as a brother, a sister, an uncle, an aunt, a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, and to like make an art of looking for the beauty in others and in this world and in life, and to really, and not in a sense of like false positivity, not in some bullshit thing of just like repeating affirmations to myself that don't feel true and aren't true. I'm kind of going all over the place, but I guess that's what happens when you have an unscripted, unplanned dialogue. There's a launching point, and from there it's just like free form flying. But there's one thing that I'd like to share that I'm remembering. One of the ways that I have been more resilient as a sensitive person, instead of the guy who's just collapsing around everybody's energy, just feeling so overwhelmed and feeling so small, so burdened, so crushed by other people's reality, and having to go off and purify, just be separate. One of the things, it's probably really unique to me, but I'm going to share it. It might not be that unique to me. I've found that as I've been becoming a more higher functioning sensitive person, that involves like talking, like being almost a loudmouth. My nature is to be an extremely expressive person. I notice this at work because I'm around so many people and they'll be expressing like negative feelings or perspectives that feel so contrary to the world I live in, or like where I'm at in my like mental and emotional landscape. And I find that to maintain my sense of self, I need to either internally like really like know that like, that's what they're going through, it's not me. Like I need to have that like clear distinction of like seeing the separation between us. But more often than that, I'm actually like a pretty vocal, expressive person who will just, like, I find myself contradicting everybody around me all the time. And in a way that is not, at the best of times, it's in a way that is not mean or condescending or rude. It's not, it's like, it's contradicting others, or contrasting others is probably the right word. It's contrasting them without creating a conflict in its purest, most kind of like honest expression. It's not angsty or edgy or frustrated. It doesn't have an agenda. It's just like, oh, you feel that? Whoa, I feel so different. Like, you don't like Christmas? I love Christmas. What do you not like about Christmas? Oh, you don't like that about Christmas? whoa, how come? It's like curious, expressive, um, and it's a very active part of me, and and in order to like keep myself functioning and feeling healthy and expanded and natural and not like contracting and shrinking and feeling overwhelmed and burdened by all the different feelings around me, I find that one of the biggest things is just like honest expression. Just like, oh yeah, I'm so oh, you like slept with 10 people in the last 3 days. I'm complete. Wow, that's so different from me. I have this reality, and being comfortable expressing, or at the very least internally owning and honoring that difference. Um, and yeah, like I find myself like shaking my head at myself at how much I contrast the people around me. But when I express that in a clean way, without an edge, without being triggered and needing to like push other people off and be frustrated and angsty, which I can and have done a whole lot of in my life, and I still will do. But in the clean form, um, it's like there's an art to that. There's an art to contrasting others, that allows us to retain our sense of self and individuality, um, and it brings, and it doesn't put others down. It can really bring light, because when a person is, particularly when a person is struggling, when they're feeling bad about themselves and they're believing mean things about themselves, um, sometimes the greatest thing you can do is in a gentle, loving way, be like, wow, I feel really different. I feel, bringing something that contrasts a person who's hurting can be of great benefit to them. So, for myself, by learning how to just like express all the feelings going on inside of me instead of holding them in and needing to run away to the woods, learning how to be that like expressive person. I think the more I do it, it's like I get less angsty and edgy and frustrated. Um, I know that that's still in me for sure. Um, and yeah, I think that the more I express naturally, the more I learn how to do so in a way that's graceful and that is beneficial to those around me. There are times when it's good enough to, have that dialogue within myself, that honest, expression of what I'm feeling. I can do it inside, and it serves the same function of kind of like, um, maintaining this this sense of self, this coherent personhood, or whatever you want to call it. I think that for me, I'm so expressive in part because I'm just a very communicative person. I'm a writer. It's like the fundamental thing that I do is, um, feel things and interpret them and try to understand them and express them in ways like that's how I form myself in reality. Like that's how I like understand who I am, is via communication. Um, so a big part of, you know, having healthy boundaries as a sensitive person for me is communicating feelings. It's an enormous, 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 enormous part. And I do want to acknowledge and honor that I still do spend a lot of time alone, and I spend, quite a bit, every morning I go for a walk alone in nature for, often an hour and a half. And I think that has extraordinary benefits, emotionally, psychologically. It's like this really beautiful meditation that I go and do every day. It's this time just for me to be in the beauty of nature, to be with my feelings and my thoughts, and to connect with something sacred, and to kind of like fill up my cup, so to speak, with really beautiful, wonderful energy, so that, for the rest of the day, if I'm going through the world and I'm around friends or coworkers or strangers who are feeling a lot of harsh, angry, negative, sad feelings, I think I can be less reactive to that and maintain resilience in my sensitivity, and be a much more warm and nurturing presence to those around me, because I've gone and done that filling of the cup, that connecting to something that feels very beautiful. And everybody's probably got a different thing that they could do on that level, but I know that alone time still plays a big part in me taking care of myself and having more resilience as a sensitive person. And I'm still not the most resilient person. Let me be very frank about that. I'm still really learning about this, but I have come. I'm really, I'm kind of proud of how far I've come in the last couple years. And it feels really important, because my life path is, at this moment, my chosen life path is to be an author. I wrote a book. I'm going to plug it at the end of this video. I'm kind of plugging it the whole time through this video. But as an author, there are kind of two worlds. There's the creative world, where you go, and for me, I write, my book is autobiographical, so I went and lived, and this is how I've written before. It's like I'll go live for a number of years and give myself to an adventure, an experiment, a process, a journey, a calling. And then I gather my material, and then I write, and it's all a very introspective, like beautiful, meditative, inward process. I thrive in that. But as an author, you also have to share that work with the world, and it requires kind of getting up on, getting in front of this mic here, getting in front of the camera, or getting in front of a crowd, or getting in front of an individual, and like strongly, clearly articulating your vision. And it also means interacting with a whole lot of different kinds of people, and throwing yourself out there so that book can get witnessed, and that you can connect with as many people who are, going to benefit by reading that book. To be so sensitive, and maybe so reactive to people and to the world, that I'm, debilitated by one conversation with a really nice person who's just got some stuff going on, that would be an extraordinary limitation on my path as an author. My path as an author really requires me to have a nervous system that can partake in this world, this wild, fascinating, mean, beautiful, extraordinary, confusing, disorienting society that we live in. And yeah, like I'm still learning, absolutely, 100%. But I'm so grateful to be more in the world. It feels so good. If you've got, I feel like this has been somewhat tangential of a discussion. I've kind of gone all over the map, and there's a lot more specifics that I probably could have dove into as far as like actionable advice. So if you have any questions, if you have an experience that feels similar that you want to share about, anything that comes up from this, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment, you can reach out to me. You can check out my book. It's called How to Open the Heart, An Incredible Journey into Vulnerability, Empathy, and the Transformation of Consciousness. You will find links to it in the description. And I think that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.